We're gonna fire up the Aries. Stay tuned. Well, for those who wanted to see it, I figured I'd give it a chance. I did a quick fire up on it in its complete dusty state. And yeah, as suspected, I do have to do voltage checks on everything. I have to learn my way around the circuit. I don't have a schematic. We have a very dim display. What you're seeing in the ones of minutes here, I can hardly see in real life. So that's it. But it's working. It's doing something. It's counting seconds. I can hit the time set buttons, and we have fast set, and we have slow set. You can see the seconds counting and the minutes. So it is kind of alive. Just took a few notes, some voltages and resistances and things, just jotting stuff down while it's working with no schematic. You gotta have something to go by if this thing stops working. I have to get the pin out on the 5311 that's used. The problem is I don't exactly know these tubes that well. There's no part numbers on them. Therefore I can't get data on them. To me, these older tubes don't have grids, and typically in my experience with these clocks, they use the grids to switch the tubes on and off for multiplexing. I think I found the filament contact points. I measured a resistance of 9 ohms between a couple of pins, and just looking at the circuit, I see a VF. That must be filament voltage up here, with a diode along that trace, which feeds a pin on the front of the tube, and then there's one with an arrow on the back of the tube that goes to the transistor network back there. 6 transistors across the back. They must be switching transistors for the tubes. On this side there's 7 that run down the right side. That would be segment switching. So that's pretty much where I got so far. One thing I did see, if you notice, is a little brighter. I'm not quite sure how this potentiometer is wired in, but you can adjust the brightness, and I got them cranked all the way up, and on film it looks a little better, but in real life you still can't read it. I wonder what happens when you put the filter in front of it, the blue filter. Yeah. Wow, that almost looks good on film, huh? Not in real life. So, you guys tell me, do I try and retrofit modern tubes in this thing? Or do I leave it as is untouched? A kind of not useful clock. Kind of a catch-22. I love these old tubes in here, but you know, it looks good on film, but in real life you can't read this thing. That's too bad. It was expected. So I could retrofit possibly some Soviet era tubes in there, but I'm going to have to do a lot more thinking, digging, and understanding of the circuit first. Filament resistance may be a little bit critical depending on how these tubes are switched. Like I said, I don't think they have grids, so they're not switching the grid on and off, and typically the filament is just kept at a static voltage. So I'll have to get out maybe the scope and see how they're switching the filaments and what have you, and go from there. It'd probably be worth putting new capacitors in first, but in the end I still think it's going to need new tubes to be able to see the display. So if I do decide to change the tubes, traces look fragile. There's been some work done already. And pinouts could be way different. I may end up having to cut traces and put jumpers in to rearrange connections. Could get a little ugly. That's one of my concerns. Let me know your thoughts on taking these rare, obsolete, unobtainium tubes out and putting in some maybe Soviet era or Japanese tubes if I can find something compatible. Gonna take some thinking and some calculating, but maybe we'll get lucky. That's all for this segment. I hope you enjoyed this dusty relic fire up. See you next time.